Do you want to know how to parent a child with ADHD and anxiety? I am Nicholeen Peck, and I have actually parented children just like that before. For many years, I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens, and many of them had combinations of neurodiverse processing that did make parenting a unique adventure. In this video, we are going to be talking about what I did, what you can do, and what works. I know that some people listening to this video might have children just with ADHD and they don't have diagnosed anxiety issues as well, but then there's some people who might have anxiety disorder and ADHD combined. So if your child has anxiety disorder or ADHD or a combination of the both of those things, this video will help you. All of the things that are shared here can be used no matter the combination, and I know I've tested them myself, as well as many other families and facilities that work with troubled youth all around the world who have tested out these same skills and principles that we're going to be discussing on the video today. So in this video, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about ADHD and anxiety and the combination of those two things and what that's like, and then what we can do when we understand the situation. First, let's talk about ADHD. I think when many people think of ADHD, they think of hyperactivity, they think of people who are super impulsive, they have a lot of impulsivity, and they just don't think first before they do something, it seems like. And if you ask them, they would probably say, I don't know, I didn't think about it. That's just how it happened, right? But also ADHD, we see people who hyper focus on things sometimes too, where it's like, well, maybe I can't focus on all of this other stuff, or it just seems like that's outside of my scope right now, but I can hyper focus on this. So when I can't pay attention to the teacher in class, it could be because I am so into breaking up the fractions on my paper. And that's why. So sometimes the passion drives a person with ADHD to hyper-focus on something, which makes it so they have a struggle focusing on anything else that's happening around them. Oftentimes, hearing what people are saying, listening to commands, instructions, those types of connections are many things that people with ADHD lose. Oftentimes, people with ADHD are compared with people who have ADD because they seem to have a hard time paying attention to things that are going on around them. Although this isn't the case for every single person with ADHD. It really does shift sometimes. That's just one characteristic that you might find. People with ADHD display atypical behavior with the reward system in the brain. So they perceive rewards differently, and they put a higher value on them than other people too. They really are searching for those little stimulations, those little just natural rewards that happen in our daily interactions, and they want more of them because they're a little bit more hypersensitive to them. Because of this, people with ADHD oftentimes will overestimate the value of short-term rewards. And so they have a hard time looking at the long view. The big picture seems like a burden when people bring it up because the things in the moment and what they can get out of what's going on in the moment usually is the higher priority. Sometimes people with ADHD experience depression. Sometimes they get forgetful. Sometimes they have anxieties because of those things. They don't like feeling that way. And so sometimes because they struggle regulating some of those feelings, they start to get a little bit down and they start to think the worst about themselves and their situation. People with ADHD have a tendency to get bored really fast, which gets them going into their head. Once they start turning the focus on going inside of their head, sometimes it's a positive experience because they have something that they want to focus on and something to keep themselves busy, but sometimes it's a negative experience for them, and then they start to act out. So you do have to look at that as well. That's a lot of times why people who have ADHD will use little fidget things, and they'll spin things, touch things, stuff like that. It's actually in an effort to try to keep them in that front brain so that they don't go to a place where they get a little lost and disconnected from everything around them. All right, if you are new to this channel, then maybe you don't know how much I have on here already about anxiety, about ADHD, ODD, a lot of different behaviors, and just to help people and parents of children who are neurodiverse. I worked for years with children who had neurodiverse processing, and I loved it. They were beautiful people, an important part of my life. Little did I know that that would lead me to doing all of these videos and helping so many people with their children. But it can be hard. Everything on this channel can help you. I want you to know that. There's hardly a video on here that you couldn't use to help your child. But if there is one thing that many people who are neurodiverse experience, it's anxiety. So there's anxiety disorder, and then there's just anxiety. Every single person experiences anxiety at one point or another in their lives, and there are certain things that trigger different anxieties in different people based upon our experiences, our upbringings, and how we've been able to problem solve in the past or not problem solve in the past, and that can lead to anxieties for people. So sometimes expectations lead to anxieties, but what we need to understand about anxiety is that there is an amount of anxiety that is normal. So you'll probably never cure a child completely of anxiety because children just have some, okay? And we all do to some degree. Now, when a person is experiencing just your run-of-the-mill anxiety, they may feel like, oh, I don't know what to choose. I don't know what is right. And there's a level of anxiousness that comes there. But when you have anxiety disorder, you start feeling very disconnected from people around you. Of course, the anxiousness and the anxiety is there, but it's definitely more acute. You start wondering if you're even able to make a decision because you don't get very much experience with it. People who have anxiety disorders oftentimes experience shock or feelings of shock. They'll have panic attacks on a regular basis. So they start feeling like their body is doing stuff completely outside of their brain's control. Even though everything is still connected, just like your run-of-the-mill anxiety, but what has happened when a person has anxiety disorder is this autopilot has taken over and their body is now starting to respond in ways that seem very acute. I mean, it seems like illness lots of times to people. Basically, the world just doesn't feel right. Things feel different. There's a lot of worrying. Of course, we would definitely, naturally connect that to anxiety. But sometimes there's even physical illness or symptoms of what could be very serious physical illnesses. And in reality, it's just the anxiety getting the brain to play out in ways that are not healthy for the person. So helping a person see what's true, understanding what they can manage, these are all very important things. So when you have a child who is dealing with anxiety disorder and ADHD, you need a predictable system of parenting. You need a way to communicate with those children so that they know that it's going to be the same every time. Any person loves to have predictability in communication and in their relationships and their problem solving. But if you have anxiety disorder or if you have ADHD, which leads to higher levels of anxiety anyway, then that predictability goes a long way. The teaching self-government type of parenting is based upon predictability. When something is predictable, then anxiety levels naturally drop in any person, even a person who has more anxiety. So what do you do to create a really great predictable system? Well, what I've done is put together principles and skills that you can rely upon in any circumstance. These skills and principles have been used in treatment facilities, group homes, foster homes, regular homes with regular families, but also homes with children who have personality disorders, bipolar disorders, a lot of really intense neurodiversity that they are experiencing. In fact, recently I was meeting with a family and they were telling me about their children, which many of them are adopted and have a lot of neurodiversity, including personality disorders and multiple personalities. And they have found the teaching self-government system to be so beneficial for the family. Does it make everything go away? No. I'm not going to promise that, but I am going to say that if you learn how to follow instructions, accept no answers and criticism, accept consequences, disagree appropriately, you learn exactly how your parent's going to communicate with you, how to get yourself to a place of calmness, how to engage the brain in problem solving when it's not coming naturally. All of those types of things that I teach in the Teaching Self-Government Parenting course on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, then you actually have so many more skills than the normal person does to work with, and you are going to see success. I saw it time and time again with children that would come to my home for treatment, and I've seen it now in thousands of families all over the world. I have a full-length class here on this channel called The Not-So-Known Secret for Parenting Success. That full class will talk about the steps to the 4 basic skills. It will go into some of the steps of correcting negative behaviors. What do you do when they go completely out of control? How do you remain calm? Those types of things will all be covered in that class. It's a little longer class, so plan for that, but it will be life-changing and will give you a great introduction to teaching self-government and what things can look like at your house, no matter if your child has neurodiversity or not. Click on the link to the Not-So-Known Secret for Parenting Success now. I'll see you there.